Good day, everyone. Thank you again for joining Myositis Support and Understanding. I hope you all are having a wonderful and educational Myositis Awareness Month. My name is Jerry Williams, and I am the founder and president of Myositis Support and Understanding, or MSU as most of you know it, but I'm also a patient living with refractory dermatomyositis. We have a great webinar planned for you today to help you learn more about a clinical study in dermatomyositis. Joining me today from MSU, Lynn Wilson, our Vice President and Director of Patient-Centered Research, and Manuel Lubinas, our Chief Science Officer. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest today from Alexion. Christine Rowe, the Director of Patient Advocacy, is here with us, along with Dr. Sanjay Rakhade, who is a physician scientist and currently serves as Executive Medical Director at Alexion AstraZeneca Rare Disease Unit in Boston, Massachusetts. Sanjay is a neurologist by training and oversees late-stage clinical development studies in the neuromuscular therapeutic area at Alexion. He has previously worked on clinical trials in Duchenne, multiple sclerosis, and lysosomal storage disorders during his previous roles at other organizations and companies. And I would just like to say that you can find his full bio on the event page. But prior to his role in the biopharmaceutical industry, Sanjay served on the faculty of the Department of Neurology at Boston Children's Hospital and Harvard Medical School. And his academic research work has been published in leading neurology journals, including Nature Reviews Neurology, Annals of Neurology, and Journal of Neuroscience. Congratulations on all those accomplishments, Sanjay. So to start off, I would like to welcome Christine Rowe, the Director of Patient Advocacy at Alexion.
Thank you so much, Jerry. So before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about the study overview and the clinical study in dermatomyositis. Please know ravulizumab is not currently FDA approved for the treatment of dermatomyositis, but really what I want to talk to you today about is a little bit about the company Alexion. So today we have the pleasure of working with MSU for the first time through this webinar, and we hope to get to know many of you here today. I want to share a little bit about who we are as an organization. Alexion is singularly focused on rare disease for more than 30 years. We have served the community. Our work is certainly not done. We're growing and evolving as an organization to make sure we're continuing to come up with solutions and ideas to better serve the patients. The AstraZeneca acquisition last year provided us with a much larger footprint and significantly more resources to ensure we can show up for patients in more meaningful ways. Whether that's expanding into more rare diseases, such as dermatomyositis, or tapping into our global networks to address significant issues that face patients like policy and access, and digging into more research. And as you can see here on this slide, these are real patients living with many of the diseases that we cover here at Alexion. And it's our mission to transform their lives, including patients with dermatomyositis, through the development and delivery of innovative medicines. And Jerry, you can go to the next slide. So we're dedicated to rare disease. We have a little over 3,800 talented colleagues around the globe. Certainly with the AstraZeneca acquisition, that number has gone up drastically. We volunteer in our communities where we work and where we live. And as I mentioned earlier, we have 30 years of leadership in the rare disease community with serving patients in 50 countries. We have 5 approved therapies, and we currently work in 7 rare diseases and devastating conditions. And certainly that's growing too as we look to expand our research. And I will turn it over now to Sanjay, who will talk a little bit about the FLEX study in dermatomyositis.
Thank you, Christine. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank Myositis Support and Understanding and Jerry, Manuel, and Lynn for inviting us to present about the ravulizumab FLEX study that we'll be talking about during the course of today's presentation. We really appreciate the opportunity and the platform that MSU has provided us to reach out to patients here and really talk a little bit about the disease dermatomyositis in general, and about ravulizumab, which is the study drug that we are bringing forth to assess the efficacy in dermatomyositis, and then provide you with some additional details around the study itself. As Christine mentioned, Alexion has about 30 years of leadership in the rare disease space. And we as a company have always been focused on the patient experience and have looked to our patients for our inspiration in conducting these studies and bringing these therapies to market. It is a part of Alexion AstraZeneca Rare Disease Unit's DNA, and we are really fortunate to have this opportunity here today. I would be going through my slides and then will be happy to answer any questions that the participants may have after the presentation. So I'd like to start off by just going over and talking a little bit about dermatomyositis. I do not need to tell this group of individuals who, as patients and as caregivers, experience the symptoms and the struggles with DM on an everyday basis about the symptomatology and the challenges with dermatomyositis. But for being able to talk about the mechanism of action of our drug, I'd really like to talk a little bit more about what some of the presentations could potentially be and how we are assessing ravulizumab, our complement inhibitor, in this particular disease condition. So dermatomyositis, or as some of us call it in the physician community, DM, is a rare inflammatory disease that's characterized by distinct skin rashes and is accompanied by muscle weakness. These are, previous slide, please. Thank you, Jerry. So the muscle weakness and skin rash are the predominant features or presenting symptoms with dermatomyositis. It may initially present as soreness or stiffness in the midsection, thighs, upper arms, and hips, essentially the areas that you see marked in red on the two torsos shown on this slide. And also may lead to weakness of the muscle. This often manifests itself as a difficulty in completing your everyday tasks, like climbing stairs, lifting objects, and even buttoning a shirt. You've seen so many patients who talk about being exhausted by climbing up a flight of stairs or not being able to reach up into their pantries or into the kitchen closets and being able to remove things which are at a certain height, or also having difficulty at the end of the day with doing some of these tasks. And we can only imagine how difficult it must be to experience that fatigue and that difficulty in completing your everyday tasks while previously being able to lead a very active lifestyle. The muscle pain that is accompanied by skin rashes is typically a distinctive reddish purple rash that appears on the upper eyelids. We as physicians call it the heliotrope rash. It can also be seen across the cheeks and bridge of the nose. Also, other common areas where this purple red rash is seen is the back, especially the upper portion of the back and the upper part of the chest, where our patients may have sun exposure and lead to the appearance of this particular reddish purple rash. This skin rash may precede or accompany the muscle weakness that is observed in dermatomyositis. And usually one or the other symptom may be amplified in individual patients. The treatment for dermatomyositis, or at least the current treatment that has been approved, is usually directed towards the specific symptoms that appear in each individual. And what I mean by that is that the treatment may be tailored towards the symptoms that you as patients might experience. if skin symptoms are predominantly the ones that are manifested in individual patients that present with dermatomyositis, then their physicians may start off by treating you with either steroids, topical creams, topical steroids, or other skin-related drugs. If muscle weakness is the presenting symptom, then typically glucocorticoids like prednisone are started in patients. And in addition to that, there may be escalation to other immunosuppressive therapies and even to immunoglobulins and rituximab. Again, we have heard from several of our patients that there isn't a specific algorithm that really directs physicians towards personalizing the treatment that you as patients receive. And there may be several trials to finding the right medication for the right individual. So next slide, please. And this is where we can talk a little bit more about the complement system and its involvement in dermatomyositis. So as I mentioned, the cause of DM is unknown, and it is thought and hypothesized that environmental factors, genetics, and even infections may play a role in the genesis or pathogenesis of dermatomyositis. However, the complement system has been shown to play a pretty important role in this, or has been observed in muscle biopsies and skin biopsies in patients with dermatomyositis. So what exactly is the complement system? The complement is a part of the body's immune system, and it helps your body fight infections, especially infections from encapsulated bacteria. The complement system consists of several different proteins, which are activated in a cascade and eventually lead to the formation of a membrane attack complex, which attacks in dermatomyositis, attacks the muscle membrane as such. The complement system underlies many autoimmune disorders, including DM. And we at Alexion have been studying the complement system for more than 2 decades now. Eculizumab and ravulizumab are two of our complement inhibitors that target the complement factor 5, which is a critical part of the complement system and leads to the terminal formation of this membrane attack complex. Soliris or eculizumab is our first generation complement inhibitor and has been approved in PNH since 2007 and has since then been approved in several other indications by the FDA and EMA. Ravulizumab is our second generation complement inhibitor and similarly has been FDA approved in paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, in autoimmune hemolytic uremic syndrome, and very recently in myasthenia gravis, another neuromuscular condition as well. In addition to that, we have recently posted positive results with ravulizumab in another neurological condition, neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorder, or NMOSD. And we have several studies underway with ravulizumab, looking at gaining approval in other autoimmune conditions. And dermatomyositis is another one of those key indications or key disease areas that Alexion is interested in terms of assessing the efficacy of complement inhibition in the disease process. So let me tell you a little bit more about the DM FLEX study, where we are assessing the efficacy of ravulizumab in dermatomyositis. The FLEX study is a phase 2/phase 3 study. And what I mean by that is that this study is intended to eventually be presented to regulators for approval as a pivotal study for ravulizumab in dermatomyositis. So the phase 2 portion, or the part A, as we call it, is currently enrolling patients. And for a large part of the seminar or the webinar today, I'll be talking about part A, or phase 2 portion of the study. But we also eventually, after the conclusion of the phase 2, will be starting the phase 3 portion of this DM Flex study. So both parts A and B, or the phase 2 and phase 3 studies, evaluate the safety and efficacy of ravulizumab in reducing symptoms of the investigational medication. And ravulizumab will be assessed against placebo, which is an inactive substance in adults with dermatomyositis. However, I'd like to again reinforce here that we allow patients participating, or the participants in these studies, to continue with some of their current DM treatments as per the protocol definitions. So although we are studying ravulizumab versus placebo in this particular Flex study, there is a background of DM treatments that all the participants can continue to receive throughout the course of this Flex study. So part A, or phase 2 of the trial, is expected to enroll approximately 48 patients across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific regions. We currently have approximately 11 sites that will be starting in phase 2 of the Flex study, and many of these sites are currently active. We have a list of study locations that's available on our clinicaltrials.gov posting, and the trial number and the details of where the exact locations can be found is on that link shown on this slide. Also, at the end of this webinar, our colleagues at MSU will be providing you with a website location where we have the same information available as well, and more details around the Flex study. I'd just like to very quickly go over some enrollment criteria so that you have an idea about the type of patients or the type of participants that can access this trial. So as DM patients, you may be eligible to participate in the DM Flex study if you are a male or female patient with a confirmed diagnosis of dermatomyositis, are at least 18 years of age, and can sign a consent form for participation in the DM Flex study. We are enrolling patients who have had an inadequate response or are intolerant to 2 or more existing DM treatments. For example, many of you may be currently receiving treatment with steroids or immunosuppressive therapies, and may, based on your physician's assessment, have an inadequate response or be intolerant to them, and may be eligible to participate in the DM Flex studies. Within the course of the study itself, you will be on a stable dose of current treatments that are allowed per protocol on entry into the study, or may have to complete a washout period for certain treatments that are prohibited within the study criteria or study protocol itself. Importantly, participants may not be enrolled into the study if they have cancer-associated myositis. And we do have certain definitions for cancer-associated myositis within the protocol. It is defined as the diagnosis of myositis within 3 years of participation. Obviously, there are some aspects related to the treatment of cancer and curative aspects, which will allow individuals with basal cell carcinoma or carcinoma in situ to potentially participate. But we can go into the details of that on an individual basis later in the study, later in the webinar. There are additional eligibility requirements that the study has. And if you get in touch with your study physician or with some of the individual sites which are participating in this DM-FLEX study, the study physician will be able to explain them to you and talk more about the specifics of your individual case as well, and talk to additional eligibility requirements. So let me talk to you a little bit more about what you can expect to experience if you are eligible to enroll in the Part A of the DM-FLEX study. As I mentioned, it is the phase 2 or the Part A of the study is a randomized controlled double-blind study, and we have what we call as the randomized controlled period of the study, where participants may receive either the study medication, that's ravulizumab, or placebo, which is an inactive substance, by intravenous infusion for a total of 26 weeks or approximately 6 months. Again, this infusion will be, we have a loading dose followed by maintenance dosing starting at week 2. And the maintenance dosing is administered at an every 8-week interval during the course of the study. Neither the participant or any of the study staff or any of the staff working on behalf of Alexion will know whether you have been given ravulizumab, the active drug, or placebo, the inactive substance. You will, as I mentioned, 2 weeks after the initial dose, you will receive study medication once every 8 weeks. There is a screening period of up to 4 weeks, wherein certain lab tests and assessments will be performed for making sure that participants are eligible and meet the requirements of the study protocol. These assessments will be performed by the site physician, and then patients will be randomized into the 2 arms. Importantly, out of every 3 patients, 2 patients would receive ravulizumab or the active drug during the course of this 26-week period, and 1 patient or participant will be randomized to the placebo-controlled arm. Following the completion of the 26 weeks, Alexion also has an open label extension, which goes on up to a period of 1 year or beyond. And in this open label extension, all participants will have the opportunity to receive ravulizumab, which is the active drug that is being studied during the course of this clinical program. So just to go over some of the key takeaways, the DM-FLEX study, which is an operationally seamless phase 2-3 study evaluating ravulizumab in dermatomyositis, is now enrolling. We have study sites across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific regions. And within the US, we are expecting to launch 11 sites. Many of these sites are currently active. And in the chat function towards the end of this presentation, you will actually see a study link which can take you to the website and provide you more information about the participating study sites or participating investigators in the DM-FLEX study. I'd just like to mention here that You may currently see a few sites that are active in the US, but we are constantly expanding and enrolling additional sites. So if you do not find a site that is closer to your location, I do encourage you to check back on the website in the future, or at least provide our external vendor with some of your contact information so that they can keep you updated about active sites as they keep coming up. This is a competitively enrolling study, and we intend to intend to have more sites as we go through the conduct of the study. As previously mentioned, participants will have a 2 in 3 chance of receiving ravulizumab or the active drug versus placebo. Essentially, that's what I meant by the 2-to-1 randomization within the phase 2 portion of the study. Also, all study participants will have the opportunity to receive ravulizumab during the open label extension period, which starts after the first 26 weeks of the study. And participants who have previously received placebo during this randomized control period will receive active drug or will receive ravulizumab during the open label extension period. Also, importantly, you will be able to stay on some of the current treatments that you continue to take for your DM. There are protocol-defined current treatments for DM that are allowed during the course of the study. And if they meet the protocol-defined or the study requirements, you as participants will be able to stay on those medications that may be working for you to a certain extent as such. With that, I think that was my last slide. And I'd again like to talk to you about, if you're interested in participating in the DM Flex study, please feel free to ask for additional questions after the end of this webinar, or also visit our study website that Jerry and Lynn have kindly put in the chat box. I'd also like to mention that study medication, travel expenses, and visit assessments will be provided at no cost to you as participants. These costs will be borne by the sponsor, Alexion. And for physicians and healthcare providers who may be on this call, we do provide the clinicaltrials.gov identifier information or the NCT number there. And you may be able to find additional information on the DM Flex study, including Part A and Part B, on this clinicaltrials.gov website that is managed by the NIH. With that, I'd like to thank everyone on the call for their interest and for listening into this webinar. And again, reiterate and just sincerely thank Jerry, Lynn, and Manuel for providing Alexion with a platform to tell you a little bit more about the DM Flex study.
Thank you, Sanjay. What an excellent presentation. It's always good to give an explanation of what dermatomyositis is for those that are maybe new to their diagnosis. So I appreciate that you took the time to do that and included muscle pain. For those of you who might not know, muscle myositis and pain is one of our big projects that we've been working on, and it's good to see that being included. It shows that you're listening to patients, right? And that's what's so important about working together with a company like Alexion. Having Christine as a director of the patient advocacy, it's important. So thank you for a wonderful presentation, and Christine, thank you, and we appreciate.
Thank you very much for partnering with us, Jerry. We really appreciate the opportunity to work together with MSU.
Agreed. Thank you, Jerry.